In fact, let's stay with this issue. We're joined by Willem Els, who is with the Institute of Security Studies. He is a senior researcher and security expert. Willem, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. It goes without saying that if indeed there is a need for an ad hoc committee on any issue in the country at the moment, it's the issue of extortion.
Good afternoon to you. Yes, indeed. It's just a pity that it took government and Parliament so long to act on this challenge that we have. It's been with us for some time. There's been a lot of complaints. There's been some court cases. There's been some court interdicts. But there was a deafening silence from Parliament and even from government in order to tackle this situation. Now that this monster has grown, it's grown out of control. Now they try to really bring in some measures. And we are fortunate that they are taking cognizance of this and that they are trying to get involved. But we should just be cautioned that it's not just another commission that will delay things. We need action at the moment because things are really bad outside.
Yeah, you say this monster has grown, and that goes some way to describing the issue, right? It's by no means a new phenomenon in South Africa, the issue of extortion, of projects being held up, projects being held to ransom, the involvement of even police and law enforcement in extortion rackets. It's quite an old issue, actually, but one that perhaps we've not taken as seriously as we should have, at least up until now.
Indeed, and unfortunately so, the construction mafia is big and gotten out of hand. And the challenge that you have there is these organized crimes syndicates, they need state actors to be compromised in order to facilitate their protection, etc. And that reaches up to a very high political level and also operational within the police, as you mentioned, the police involvement there. So first of all, we will need political will. From the top, that when these people are being fingered and investigated, that they are being brought to book irrespective of what their political affiliation or status is, and that goes with the police and other state departments as well. We should everybody is supposed to be equal on the law, and we will have to enforce the rule of law. Otherwise, this one is not going to get away. We see that this is a mafia-styled organization and how they work, and that actually originated in Italy, and we saw that for the past 40 years, Italy is they doubled up their legal, they updated their laws, and they through the sources they are really fighting hard. They got task teams working in, and even today, after almost 40 years, they have still not eradicated it. So we have to step in very fast because this monster becomes uncontrollable.
I mean, the issue of, getting communities involved in trying to get to the bottom of extortion is perhaps easier said than done, isn't it, Willem? I mean, these are heavily armed groups. They operate in large groups. They instill fear. Not only do they instill fear, they act on the threats that they make to communities. People have lost their lives. So the silence and the relative low reporting is obviously due to this fear of reprisal.
Indeed, for instance, here in Mamelodi, one of the gangs that are working on that, they call themselves Boko Haram. Now, Boko Haram is a terrorist organization in Nigeria, and they instill fear. And they use that name because they want to instill fear. And that goes with it. In the Northwest province, one of the gangs there is called Al-Qaeda. So they use these tactics of using terrorist organizations' name to further instill fear in the public. And your challenge that you are sitting with is that recent studies have indicated that 73% of the public do not trust the police at all. So that is where we will have to start. We're never going to have the full involvement and participation of the public that are actually the eyes and the ears of the police unless we restore that trust. Now, if you ask me, how do we restore that trust? In the first place, we mentioned it, we have to curb corruption. They need a definite strategy from the minister from the top down to eradicate this corruption within the state organizations, especially in the police. And secondly, we have to demonstrate competency. The police will have to start to demonstrate that they can do it and that they are effectively prosecuting these people. Otherwise, we're not going to restore the trust of the public in the police.
Well, it's funny you say 73% because that's also the percentage of all reported crimes that are focused in 4 provinces in the country, all extortion-related crimes. It's Gauteng, KZN, the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. And I wonder, Willem, whether anything in the studies that you have done and the monitoring that you have done of this issue, what is it about these 4 provinces that makes it so easy, seemingly, for extortion to thrive?
Well, if you look at the Western Cape and you look at Gauteng and KZN, you know, those are your economic hubs. So a lot of your economic activities are taking place there. The Eastern Cape is a bit of an outlier, but as was mentioned in your report, you know, that bridge that has been constructed there at the moment, that's a massive infrastructure and financial input that is put there, that is going to that province. And that is facilitating it, but also, you know, it is where you allow lawlessness to continue. We've seen that the Eastern Cape has become more lawless and lawless through the years, and that is due to a lack of effective policing, effective strategies and implementation on the part of the police in the Eastern Cape that actually allow the breeding ground for these groups and other groups to function. But we must just reiterate that, you know, we're talking about the construction mafia. That's only one of the mafias. I mean, how long have the buses, for instance, that are transporting people from Cape Town and from Durban to Johannesburg, those long distances, how long have they been targeted? How long have they been asking Parliament to get involved, the police to get involved? But we have seen very limited action where the private sector is being targeted and where we don't see that action that needs to be from the highest level.
Yeah, and it goes somewhere, you know, you talked about clamping down on corruption in all its forms, and that includes in government, right? Outside of the construction sectors and infrastructure, the buses that you mentioned, but in government where there is even a whiff of corruption, how much more strongly we need to be acting against that.
Indeed. I mean, if you just look at the Zondo Commission and the outcome of that and the limited action that has been taken after that, that just demonstrate to you that there's not much political will in order to prosecute these people. You know, the police can investigate as much as they can, but at the end of the day, if there's a political decision on to prosecute and not to prosecute, that is where we are really defaulting on the rule of law. And that is what seems to be the situation at the moment.
And of course, it's communities, right? Communities who are waiting on these infrastructure projects, as we hone in on, you know, the construction mafia as one example of extortion syndicates and where they thrive. Ultimately, it means we can't get these projects off the ground and people can't get the services that they so desperately need.
Exactly. And, you know, the misinterpretation and exploitation by your legislation, by these groups, is where the legislation stipulates that 30% of the people or the resources for a state-sponsored or a civil contract that is sponsored by a state need to come from the local area. That means that your resources must come from there, but also your jobs must come from there. It doesn't mean that it must go there for free. So what we saw a month ago here in the Bronkhorstspruit area is where there was a construction of a roadworks. And this Boko Haram gang went there and they wanted to stop the project in order to go. So the community took action into their own hands and they killed 5 of those people. And that is not what we want to have. You know, then anarchy kicks in. And I think that is a desperation from the local communities who are losing out to improvement in their daily lives by these gangs that are so greedy and stopping everything.
Sure. From communities taking the law into their own hands, from there, Willem, it's a hop, skip and a jump to a mafia state.
Of course. And we are fast descending into a mafia state if we don't stop this.
Willem Els, let me thank you for your time, as always. He's with the Institute Security Studies, more on the impact of extortion cases. The National Council of Provinces, in fact, has spent the better part of today hearing how extortion rackets have impacted on service delivery.